Hi guys, so I've been home a little while. It's been foul weather for on and off for a few days, and today has been particularly bad, and I've been working outside and I just came home absolutely soaked through, you know, when it goes through all your layers. And by the time I got home, the outside, I looked dry, so the outside of my clothes were dry, but the inside of my clothes and what felt like right through to my bones was still wet. I'm sure all of you outside people are used to that feeling, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I'm making the most of this brief respite, this lovely sunny patch we've got. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'm making the most of this time to come out and milk my goats and feed the pigs and stuff. So I'm not sure how long this vlog's going to be at the moment. I'm not sure whether we're going to be doing anything else or whether it's just going to be a case of doing that and then running back in. But last year, the wet weather started around this time, and we suffered tremendously with the paddocks basically turning to mud. And as you can see, after just a few days, we've already got signs that it's going to come back, and I'm just hoping that this isn't a sign that we're going to get another really wet autumn and winter, because we can cope with it. We made the decision not to increase our stock. The ground here has got the capacity to handle a lot more animals than we have, but not if we're going to get this weather again. So while we're milking, got my son helping me today, Rockus, thank you. I'll just show you this ground. Now, they walk up and down this fence line because this is where they come when they see us. When they see us, we're usually that side because that's our boundary over there. So we're very rarely along that side. So this is the side they come to when they see us. And this little path is just something they always wear out within a week or two of being in here. This is always trodden down. But as you can see with this weather, it's just muddying up. And so far it is just on this side of the paddock and where we milk. But something interesting about this piece of land, there's ridges and furrows all the way along it, and they run uphill to downhill. From here, to walk straight down the avenue, you go up and down, and the ridges run right up the property. Now, this is basically from medieval farming. The phrase ploughing a lonely furrow, it comes from these troughs and furrows. Basically, peasants would be allotted a section of land, and the way they would work the soil and till it basically up and down would mean that gradually the soil would move either into the center of their furrow or to the outside. I can't remember which, but basically what it led to over years was this effect. So we've got that. The reason I'm sharing all this with you is because when we get heavy rain, what happens is the water, and we're on clay as well. So the fact we're on clay just exasperates all the things I'm about to tell you. But basically the water sits in the low points that run down our property. So you can see this little trough here still hasn't recovered from last winter. And you can see actually through here, look, this trough, you see the grass isn't quite as recovered as it is just next to it on one of the higher points. So last year, through the bad weather we had, it was in these depressions in the ground that we lost all the grass basically. And as you can see, even though we've thrown a load of grass seed down here, this is in one of the troughs, and you can see that the weeds that came in and populated the ground, the grass still hasn't had chance to outcompete them. Now it will in time if we get a couple of seasons of reasonable weather, because the fact that we're using this for animals, that manure and everything is going to act as fantastic fertilizer, and it's going to allow the grass to outcompete the weeds for the most part. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm sharing this with you because it's on my mind, and it's a worrying sign because we're still in August. So we finished milking, and my son is taking the milk in to process it, so that's awesome. And it's not raining still, which is equally awesome. So I won't be going in now until it starts raining. I'll make the most of whatever brief respite I get. So I'm going to go feed the pigs, and I've already harvested today's vegetables. I did that in the rain as soon as I got home. Before I got in the house, I thought it was absolutely bucketing down when I got home, so I figured go and harvest the veggies for tonight's dinner while I'm already wet. So I did that before I went in. It's an odd time of year. It feels later than it should. I don't know if it's just because we had a poor potato harvest and the weather's changed, whether that's making me feel like this year is going to be chalked up as not a failure, because there's no such thing, because whenever we fail we learn something. So not a failure, but as a disappointment. It could be that, you know, in a week or two the weather will change and we'll get some sun back and everything will feel great and the crops will come back into their own. But I feel like we've got quite a lot of crops that, if this rain does stay in, like it looks like it may, for any significant portion of time, then some of our crops are going to struggle as well, because we can always water when it's dry. We can always water, but what we can't do is stop the rain from falling. And where we're on clay here, we've got some issues with irrigation that aren't easily solved. So we've got some perennial plants that I've got my eye on with a slight concern. We've got some globe artichoke plants that I only put in this year, and they were doing fantastically well, but they do not like to have their feet wet, so I have to keep an eye on things like that. All right, girls, so you can see by the size of these pigs now, where these guys are nearly ready to harvest. I'll talk to you more about that after I fed them. They're pretty much the size now where they're ready for processing. Now I'm in two minds again how I proceed. We're at a lot of crossroads here. We're at crossroads with all of our big animals. Two options as to whether or not we're going to process one pig or two. And then we've got another two options with how we do it. What we will do is we will either just process this one that's closest to us and keep the one behind and breed from her. Now, that's my inclination, is to go that way, because I hate having to buy in piglets every year when we could be breeding our own. Now, the downside of that, the one reason not to do that, is what it means is that we're keeping bigger pigs, because mum is going to be a permanent resident at that point, and possibly the male. Now, if we did that, what we would do is we would buy in 3 weaners that would all be boars, and we would process 2 of them for meat in maybe 6 or 9 months when they got to size, and then 1 would stay, and then we'd have a breeding pair. Now, having a breeding pair of pigs is very, very different to having pigs that we allow to get to this size and then we butcher, because all of a sudden we have to be a little bit more cautious about penning them in. So what we would have to do in that instance is we would have to just really be far more diligent and possibly beef up some of our fencing so that they can't get out, or we would have to run 1 strand of electric fence all the way round. As you can see, there are areas where that wouldn't necessarily be all that simple. It adds to maintenance. Whichever option we go for adds to the maintenance here, because we would have to then keep that bit clear if we're going for the electric fence, and obviously if we're going for the just generally keeping all the fencing in a better condition, then you can see, without me having to explain, how that is a little bit more maintenance. So that's the first thing that I need to decide, and I need to decide very, very soon, because like I say, they're pretty much there now. So in the next 2 weeks, at least one of those pigs will have been processed. And that brings me to the second thing that I need to make a decision on, and I've kind of been putting it off, and that is whether or not I'm going to butcher the pigs myself. Now, I'm very, very comfortable with dealing with the animal. I'm very, very comfortable dispatching it, and I'm very, very comfortable butchering it. There are 2 things to consider. So I've recently acquired my shotgun and rifle license. So I am now able to purchase a firearm that I would be able to humanely dispatch them with. So that side of it's taken care of. What I don't have is a space that is suitable for butchering a pig. Now, if I lived alone, I would probably, and I haven't looked into this, so you know, I'm not saying this is necessarily feasible, but I would certainly look into the option of hanging and processing the pig in the wood, much like you would deal with a deer or something in the field. I would field dress it effectively. Now, I'd need to look into the logistics of that, and I'm certainly not knowledgeable enough to talk to you about bleeding pigs and things like that yet. But whatever needed to be done, I would do the first portion of that out here in the wood. Now, obviously, there's downsides to that. And if I had a big enough space where I could have, you know, stainless steel worktops and like you would get in any butcher's, then that would be ideal. But I don't have that, and I'm not going to have that in the near future. So the biggest roadblock to me actually processing them myself is having the space to do it. Now, I've spoken to a local butcher. There's just no way that I can have access to a space like that. The legislation in the UK and probably elsewhere, it just dictates that that's not an option. Now, interestingly, it's perfectly legal for me to dispatch the pigs myself. It's perfectly legal for me to take them to a butcher's where they also do the dispatching, and for them to dispatch them and butcher them. But what is not legal is for me to dispatch them here and then transport them and have a butcher do the work. There are all sorts of political reasons why, and, you know, reasonable reasons why that legislation is in place. But it doesn't really help me, because in an ideal world, that's what I would do, I think, is I would dispatch them myself and then I would take them to a butcher to be processed. But I don't think that's going to be an option for me. So I really need to decide. My wife's very happy for the pigs to be here and everything else, but she isn't going to be particularly comfortable with me hauling an entire dead pig into the kitchen for a day of processing. And realistically, you know, it's going to take me the best part of a day to do it the first time. A butcher would do it in half an hour or an hour. And yeah, so there's all sorts of things to consider. What I'm building up to is, I think what I'm going to have to do is just have them processed somewhere else. There's two reasons why I would prefer not to do that. The first is an animal welfare point of view, and that is that the trauma of transporting the animal. Obviously, if I could avoid them having to go through that, then I would. And the second one is obviously cost, because a huge part of what we do is about being self-sufficient and keeping costs down to zero. So either way, we're at that stage where they're going to be processed very soon. The other crossroads that I was talking about was with the goats, but in this instance, I think the decision's been made. So we're at the stage now where we're going to be introducing a new male. In the UK, we call them a billy. I'm basically billy shopping as we speak. Now, when I go and inspect them and pick them up, I'll bring you guys with me, so you'll definitely get to see that. But they're at the point now where I want to introduce a male, and we know for a fact, and we've known for a long time, that the two Toggenburgs, the darker ones, they're definitely going to be bred. I still haven't decided about Fern yet, but what I have decided is that we're not going to milk Fern through. Fern had a minor udder infection a little while ago, and effectively, all right, love? Effectively, her yields just dropped in half almost overnight, and they've not recovered. So from a selfish point of view, it's not worth the effort. It's not worth the effort for me to come out and commit to having to come out every single day to get the tiny amount of milk. And it's not a tiny amount of milk, but it's too little to warrant the effort. So what we're doing now is we're basically going to be just storing as much milk as we can in the freezer, so that it lasts as long as it can, and then effectively we're going to dry them up. So it'll be a bit disappointing to have to purchase milk, but it's something that we're going to have to do this winter. And then maybe, obviously next year, hopefully, we won't have any issues and we'll be able to milk right through. But that's what we're looking at now. So in our future and in your future, if you're going to be following along, will be little kid goats, and they are the cutest, funnest things in the world. As you guys probably know, I've committed to doing a video every day for 30 days. Now, I haven't committed to doing a vlog every day for 30 days. So if any of you were wondering, there's no change. I'm still uploading a video every day for 30 days. And usually there will be a vlog. But for a few days, it just wasn't very convenient. I was super busy, or I just wasn't doing anything really that I thought you guys would be interested in. I don't want to show you the same thing every day. So that's why I've uploaded some of the other videos that I have done over the last few days. I will still be uploading vlogs very regularly. And what I want to do actually is do a Meet the Animals one where we'll go around and I'll show you all the animals we've got here, including some of our pets and more of the chickens, because a lot of the time when I talk to you, I'm mainly talking about the bigger animals. So I'll show you some of the others. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.